listening to the Crosscheck NHL Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Crosscheck NHL Show. Thanks for making the Crosscheck NHL Show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. We're free and available on all platforms, now including YouTube. My name is Mary Clarke, staff writer for The Win, and you can follow me on Twitter at Mary C. Clarke. I'm here with Andrew Berkshire, NHL analyst for the Montreal Gazette and host of Game Over Montreal on the SDPN. You can follow on Twitter at Andrew Berkshire. On this Monday edition of the Crosscheck, it's playoff season, baby! Today's our big Stanley Cup playoff preview show where we'll preview the Western and Eastern Conference matchups and also give our dark horse candidates and any bold predictions we have for the upcoming first round. So, Andrew, before we start off today's show, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We had a nice birthday weekend here for Miles, my youngest. So he turned 2 years old. Had a lot of fun. We had a beautiful weekend weather-wise, so we spent most of it outside. It was a good one. We had a little party in the park yesterday. He had cupcakes decorated and arranged to be the Hungry Little Caterpillar, which is one of his favorite books. So good weekend all in all here, and I'm ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, same. A lot of my weekend was getting ready for the playoffs, trying to relax a little bit before the marathon sprint we are about to go on, because it is going to be fast and furious. This is the first playoffs in a handful of years now that's the normal format we've come to expect from the NHL. Previously, when the pandemic shortened the season, we had the 24 teams make the playoffs and had that like play-in rounds. That was cool, but different. And then of course last year was the shortened season, but also was the weird divisions and stuff like that, where we had the All Canada division. So now we are back to the usual playoff format. It's looking really spicy this year, I think. I think this is going to be a really good playoff, in my opinion, and I hope it delivers. So we're just going to dive right in, because I think that's what everybody wants to hear from us, Andrew, is, our predictions, us talking about the series. And we're going to do the Western Conference first, because, we're both on the East. So, I think it's only fair that we give a bit of time to shine for the West. So the first series we're going to talk about is the Avalanche versus the Predators. That's the number one spot in the Central with the Avalanche, and the second wild card spot in the Predators, because the Avalanche had the most points out of the Western Conference. So, Andrew, what are we thinking for this series? I think I can already tell the way we're going to talk about the series, but what are you looking forward to coming into the series? And eventually, who do you have coming out on top?
Now that UC Saros is injured, it's not a contest, unfortunately. Yeah. This one is going to be over in 4 or 5 games. David Rittich seems like a nice guy, but his goaltending in the NHL is not good. I think this is going to be a absolute gong show from the Nashville Predators perspective. Like, they'll put up offense, sure. Mm-hmm. Matt Duchene and Philippe Forsberg and Roman Josi have all had career years, but I don't think there's any way that they can stop the Avalanche. It's just, I was looking at some models yesterday. Dom Lucian's model had the Avalanche at 92% to win, which is the highest I've ever seen. And obviously it wouldn't be that high with UC Saros in the lineup, but he's not. So this is an ugly one, I think. It's almost a bye for the Colorado Avalanche, which means they're going to get upset. But
we know how it goes. Yeah, we know how it goes in the playoffs. But you make a good point. UC Saros' injury is the big linchpin here. If the Predators had him, and he's been quite solid to really good this year. Definitely could steal a game or two and make the Avalanche sweat a bit. The Avs would probably still be favored if he was playing. But as of game 1, he's not. So we'll see what happens for the rest of the series if he's able to come back in at any point. But it is a huge blow. And, you mentioned Matt Duchene on the Predators. We kind of really haven't talked about him a lot this year. But, him having a career year after the way he started with the Predators was really cool to see, at least, because that contract was incredibly maligned by people. And he kind of lived up to it this year. Sadly, it seems like, all that effort and stuff kind of might go to, go to waste because they're about to hit the, brick wall that is the Colorado Avalanche. But, the Predators still had a good season. I think they surprised a lot of people with, how far they basically made it. I don't think I predicted them to be in the playoff hunt at all. They didn't seem like a team that really had a lot going for them outside of their top guys. And because Matt Duchene was one of them, and, really turned it around this year, they made the playoffs, and it's cool to see. I mean, of course, upsets can still happen, but, it seems like the Avalanche have this in the cards unless there is some incredible, colossal meltdown. They don't get the goaltending. Suddenly their scoring, drops off completely. But I don't think that's going to happen with the team as skilled as the Avalanche are, especially because I believe Gabriel Landeskog might be coming back from injury. Well, at least the last time I looked, he was skating with the team like a regular jersey. So it's very possible that he's back for game one. And then it's because I believe he was leading the team in goals and then was injured in March. So yeah, the Avalanche have a lot going for them here. But what did you say you were predicting them to end up as, Andrew, in 4 or 5?
Yeah, I think it's going to be 4 or 5. I just don't see how they can take more than that off them. I know that the Avalanche kind of coasted to the gate there and didn't really play well down the stretch, but they're just so talented.
Yeah, they are. I have in my official predictions that I will put up on Twitter with the bracket and everything once my post on For the Win goes live. I have the Avalanche in 5. Makes a lot of sense. Giving the Preds a game, possibly at home, because, anything can happen in the playoffs. I think it's a gentleman's sweep here, as it were. So it seems like we have both the Avalanche coming out of the first round. So next, I'm really excited for this series. It is the Minnesota Wild versus the St. Louis Blues, second and third in the Central Division. Like I said, I'm really excited for this series. I think these two complement their strengths and weaknesses really well. So I think this is going to be a long one. Personally, I have Minnesota in 7. I'll be interested to see where you lie, Andrew, but I think this is going to be probably the biggest, I don't know if the biggest dogfight of the first round, but I think this will be a very long one, in my opinion. I think these two match up well in terms of intensity, and where the Blues are good on offense, the Wild are, have really good goaltenders, in Cam Talbot and Marc-Andre Fleury. Especially if, playoff Fleury, as we have known him when he was on Vegas, materializes. I think the Wild could go far, but that's what I have, Minnesota in 7. So what are you thinking, Andrew, for this series?
This is a series. It's so weird because by every reliable measure, the Minnesota Wild are a way better team than the St. Louis Blues, and the Blues swept them in the regular season.
Yep.
So I have a feeling this is going to be one of those ones where the regular season matchup doesn't matter that much. I agree with you that it's going to be a longer series just because the Blues have, they're one of the best teams at creating cross crease passes on their scoring chances, which makes them score on a higher than expected number of their scoring chances overall. Sorry. So they kind of outdo their own analytics to a certain extent. But on the other side, Ville Husso is going to have to steal some games. And, if Cam Talbot or Marc-Andre Fleury falter, the other one can go in. Whereas I'm not sure that the Blues have as much confidence in Jordan Binnington anymore just because he's been kind of erratic. Mm-hmm. I know that he won a Stanley Cup for them, but I'm less of the belief that was him being great than it was so much the Blues were in the right place at the right time. They were a really good team. I don't think his performance that year was actually that impressive. He's been an all right goaltender, but for the most part, since that in the playoffs, he's also been terrible.
There was something magical about that run, at least. I don't know if, you have this, power, invisible will to win, essentially. If, basically the stars all kind of aligned for the Blues in that playoff run, because they were last place in the NHL in January and then flipped it around completely, brought up Jordan Binnington. It seemed like everything aligned well for them. And
but he was only just good in the playoffs, right?
Sure,
he only had a 9-14.
Sure, but some goaltenders are like that. I mean, what? I don't remember Matt Murray's save percentage with the Penguins, but it was very similar that, like, Matt Murray had those years, like those couple Stanley Cup years with the Penguins, and then has
Fell
since
apart.
kind of fallen apart. Yeah. So we've at least seen this before in recent years in the NHL,
Yeah.
but I agree.
Compared to Matt Murray, though, sorry, but his first 2 years in the playoffs where he won the Stanley Cup twice, he had a 923 and a 937.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I forgot how dominant that was.
Yeah, he was a much bigger part of those cup runs than Jordan Binnington was.
Listen, the reason the Blues won was because of Gloria. I'm not going to take that away from them. Great song. True. I'm so glad that was like that whole run was a thing just because of the uniqueness surrounding the Blues and like their story and stuff like that. But yeah, Jordan Binnington is not the goaltender he once was. He probably wasn't even the goaltender, like,
that they believed. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the overall point is, I think that Minnesota just has far more tools in their toolkit overall over a 7-game series. I think it's going to be like a tactical one way, the other way matchup, but I think it's going to be over in 6. I think Minnesota's just a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I would have predicted 6 here, but I don't know. I have the feeling that the series could be a long one, especially because the Blues had their number in the regular season, but that doesn't always matter. This is the playoffs. It's a new animal and stuff like that. So, but we both have the Wild, leaving the first round and going to the second here. So we will continue on and talk about the Flames versus the Stars, the Calgary Flames and the Dallas Stars. And the Flames were first in the Pacific, I believe. Right? Yeah. First in the Pacific, and then the Dallas Stars were the second wild card after nearly coughing it up to Vegas at the end of the season, backing into the playoffs. I think we all know how this series is going to go to, Andrew, because the Flames offense is incredible. We've talked a lot about them, but we're going to talk about them now. I have the Flames in 5, another gentleman's sweep, because it's hard to predict a sweep outright. In these NHL playoffs. They do happen, but it just kind of feels a little disrespectful to, predict a sweep. So I have the Flames in 5. What say you, Andrew?
I'm right there with you, and I'll go over my reasons why. I think this matchup is incredibly interesting because the 2 most used lines in the entire NHL this season will be facing off against each other, and they're also 2 of the best lines in the NHL. 2 of the best lines the last 5 years. In that Lindholm, Tkachuk, Gaudreau line, which is like unbelievable this year. And then almost on an equal footing, you have the Pavelski, Hintz, and Robertson line for Dallas, which was, again, absolutely incredible. The difference is when that Tkachuk line or Gaudreau line wasn't on the ice in Calgary, they still dominated play to a ridiculous degree. They were a little bit unlucky in terms of goals for, goals against, but their depth was still very, very strong. Dallas, when that Rupe, Hintz, Robertson, Pavelski line wasn't on the ice, terrible. Very, very not good. So I think that that's what this comes down to, is those 2 top lines will essentially cancel each other out. Maybe one will be slightly better than the other. And then the depth for the Flames is what's going to carry them through. And I have a lot of respect for Daryl Sutter's coaching. As much as at times he's coached boring systems, he has advanced with the times and gone in a direction that makes sense. And the Flames play that like heavy hockey, right? Like they are not going to let you shy away from anything over the course of a 7-game series. They're going to beat you down. They're not a huge team, but they're a heavy team. And I really like their style of play coming into the playoffs. Like I said earlier on our last show, they're my Stanley Cup pick. I just can't shake the idea that they're going to do it with Jacob Markstrom. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to have this one over in 5 as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough for Dallas. It really is. I mean, Joe Pavelski's had an incredible season. A career year at age 37 was a really cool story to see, in my opinion. Just, really awesome stuff for a guy that's, given it his all in his career, and, really helping Dallas to the playoffs when, the stars that they usually think of on Dallas are, Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn. But, they haven't really had, years like they used to, basically since the pandemic started, if I want to say. So it's been nice seeing the Stars back in the playoff race, but I like you said, I don't believe them to, get out of the first round here against somebody as deep as Calgary, and as incredible as their goal scoring lines are. But I think this will be at least a fun series, in terms of just the play styles, especially just the Flames are going to be a really fun team, basically, is what I'm saying here. And Dallas, I think with their top line can, also have, moments of fun and stuff like that. The Flames are going to win out, I believe, at the end of the day. And like I said, also in 5. And the last series we have in the Western Conference is the Edmonton Oilers versus the Los Angeles Kings, number 2 and number 3 in the Pacific Division. I have the Edmonton Oilers in 6. And, because the Kings have injuries, they kind of backed a little bit into the playoffs in terms of they had a strong ending, were able to box out the Vegas Golden Knights, but they weren't looking. It's the injury to Drew Doughty that really does it for them. He played so many hard minutes, and it feels like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, excuse me, are going to run wild on this team. The biggest question mark I have, though, is if Mike Smith can't continue to be really good in net. I mean, he doesn't need to be I believe he ended the season 9-0 with a above 940 save percentage or something like that. I don't think he's going to need to be that. But if he can't be good, and if he turns into the Mike Smith we've seen from him in the past, the Oilers will be in trouble. But I think at least for now, the Oilers can get through because, I just don't think the Kings are in the same level. That the Oilers just have a lot more going on. McDavid and Draisaitl, and if Mike Smith can at least be competent in net, he doesn't need to be that 945 in net. But, we'll see how it shakes out. But that's the one thing I can see from this Oilers team is if their goaltending completely collapses, which, Andrew, we've talked about before, is that was a big fear of ours. And they didn't pick up a goalie at the trade deadline. So we'll see how it works out for them. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think outside of a true contender, this is the nightmare matchup for the Edmonton Oilers. And, obviously Drew Doughty being out helps the Oilers significantly. But I watched last year as Philippe Deneau limited Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews to 1 goal between them in a 7-game series. I watched as he frustrated Mark Scheifele so much that he got himself suspended for the entire second round of the playoffs. I watched as he limited Kyle Connor to 1 goal in the second round of the playoffs. I watched as he stole Mark Stone's soul in the playoffs last year. If you watch that series against the Golden Knights, Mark Stone disappears. He ceases to be alive because of Philippe Deneau and his defensive, just absolute, I don't even know how to describe it, just destroying of Mark Stone. He Mark Stone. Mark Stone is known for that, that takeaway and pushing things the other way. Deneau just did not give him a second to take things away because he was too busy losing the puck. It was something special. And then you also have Anze Kopitar, who's one of the best defensive players of his generation. That matchup between those two guys and McDavid and Draisaitl is going to be incredible. And because of it, I think this goes 7. And
Ooh.
Mike Smith, I think he is a commodity that I do not trust. But at the same time, LA's goaltending has not been very good either. If Dave Tippett was still coaching, I would say that this would be an LA Kings series, even with Drew Doughty out. But Jay Woodcroft is much more malleable and much more able to adjust in a short span of games, and he's also one who is stuck with smart ideas, like sticking Jesse Puljujarvi with McDavid, even though he's not necessarily scoring. He's creating opportunities for other players to score, even if he's not getting point production out of it. So the fact that he understands things like that and continues to go with them, to me, says that he's got the smarts to get through this and understand that he needs to find those 8 to 10 minutes a game where Deneau or Kopitar won't be on the ice, because I think that that's all that there's going to be, and just continue to throw McDavid and Draisaitl out in those minutes as much as they can and score when they can. And if Mike Smith has a couple bad games, he's going to have a short leash, and it's not going to be Koskinen. It's going to be Stuart Skinner called up.
Yeah.
I don't believe Woodcroft is to be punny, wooden enough to stick with those two guys. I think that he's going to have a very short leash, and it's going to be they need to win this series. And plus, Battle of Alberta in the second round.
Yeah,
we can't not have it.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
we need it. We do.
We desperately need it. I think this is going to go 7. It might even go 7 in overtime.
Ooh.
But I think the Oilers are going to win this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Phil Deneau is a soul destroyer, as you have said, and Anze Kopitar is also an incredible defensive player. But it's weird that I trust Jay Woodcroft of all coaches, but he's gotten so much out of the Oilers. Like he really has. It's been night and day with this team, and I know some of that has been the goaltending, and it's very possible that Mike Smith just turns back into a pumpkin again because it's the playoffs. Anything can happen. But, I have a little faith that, like you said, he's more malleable. He's more open to changing ideas. He's not rigid in his ways. That, he'll find a way to, counterplay basically the Kings and their defensive style. It's just, there's a lot that could go wrong for the Oilers here, but I think this version of this team can do it, at least get to the second round. I don't think that they can progress any farther than that, but I think that they can beat this Kings team that is, that's not as deadly, that's, maybe super defensively heavy, but they can't be on the ice at all times. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, I think, will find a way to, make some goals happen. But that's the Western Conference. It seems, Andrew, as if we have agreed on the 4 teams we think are making it out of the West, which I'm not surprised about because it's a little more chaotic in the West. Upsets can surely happen, but it's hard to predict an upset here, especially when you've got, the matchups the way they are. But I'll be interested to see how we land in the East, which is what's going to be coming up next. We're going to be talking about the Eastern Conference and who we believe is going to make it out of the first round, and that will be coming up right after this. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, NHL playoffs, and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making the Crosscheck NHL show your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, Andrew. So, the Eastern Conference playoff matchups. This is going to be this is where the juggernauts are. This is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, the West was going to be a lot of fun, but I think the East is where a lot of people are looking because there's just so many Titans over there, and some of them are going to have to fall in the first round. But first series we're going to talk about is the Florida Panthers versus the Washington Capitals. The Florida Panthers, number 1 in the Atlantic. Washington Capitals, second wild card. Could have been the Pittsburgh Penguins had things flipped the other way on the final day of the season, but was not to be. It is the Washington Capitals versus the Florida Panthers. I have Florida in 5. Another gentleman's sweep here. I just cannot see the Capitals lasting with the Panthers that long. The Florida Panthers offense is the best offense in the NHL. Outscores all of their problems, even if their goaltending can be middling to bad. They've just been able to find a way to outscore all of their problems this season. It's just going to be too overwhelming, I think, for this Capitals team because they could just bombard them with goals. The Capitals' goaltending situation hasn't been very good this year. They've had their peaks and valleys, and I don't think I can trust them against the Florida Panthers offense that is this good, this potent. What say you, Andrew? How do you think this series is going to go?
I think this one's over in 4.
Ooh, a sweep. You're predicting a sweep.
I am. I think that the Capitals are old, and that's fine for the regular season, but getting through the regular season, they're just going to be more banged up than the Panthers are. The Panthers are so good. They're good and they're young. They've got young players in the right places. They come at you in waves. Their third line scores like a low-end first line in the NHL. It is absolutely incredible how deep they are offensively. I just don't think the Capitals have any answer to this. And if the Capitals had the power play that we've come to know from the Capitals, where like that's their big danger thing that if you take a penalty, you're in trouble because the Capitals are definitely going to score. That OV one-timer or the Carlson one-timer is going to go in for you or against you. That might be a little bit more scary, but the Capitals power play this year is down at 23rd in the league.
Yeah.
It's just, it hasn't evolved with the times. They still go for the same thing, and the players are older. They're a little bit slower. Teams have adjusted to it. Ovechkin's still going to get his goals, right? Like, because he's Alex Ovechkin. But overall, the team just hasn't improved while everyone else around them has improved. And it's the Florida Panthers where you're going to be afraid to do anything. Because I think the Florida Panthers can go through this series and basically act like the Tampa Bay Lightning did last year against them, which is not care about penalties, cheat as much as you want, and you're going to get your calls anyway because every team takes some penalties, and you're going to make your power play matter, and you're not going to have to worry about theirs. They're just going to outbeat these Washington Capitals. I just don't see any route for the Capitals to do anything.
What was the model's take on this one? Do you know? Because I feel like this one would be more heavily skewed towards the Panthers than the one was towards the Avs versus the Predators. Because like this one feels like more of the the possibility of the sweep feels higher. Did the models have give the Capitals any hope or?
I think it was 16% according to Donald's
right.
model. So
That's
84% for the Panthers. I think the difference is that they don't have Dave Rittich in goal. That's the main thing, right?
Yeah, it's good. That's a good point. The Capitals at least have competent goaltenders, but they've been sketchy for parts of the season. And the Capitals had been playing better as of late heading into the playoffs. So that's kind of why I think at least they'll get a game. They've at least looked more cohesive as a team, getting at least a little bit better goaltending in those games that they've won. But yeah, they're not even close to the same, stratospheres here. Like
also
Florida
another factor is Aaron Ekblad is coming back.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe not for game 1, but he's set to come back in this series. He hasn't played since March 18th.
Yeah.
And had an incredible season. Like he had 57 points in 61 games. Like if he'd played all year, we'd be talking about him for the Norris Trophy as well. Right.
God, I want the Panthers to win the Stanley Cup so badly. They're such a fun team. They're so fun. Please, we deserve this. I mean, we've had a really good couple of years. Tampa Bay has been such a fun team. We're going to talk about them next, but I just want this trend to continue of really fun teams winning the Stanley Cup. And I think if the Panthers win, it will be, I don't know, just like something about them. They're just so fun. They just score goals and don't care about
defense at all.
They score goals and don't care about defense, and it's really great. It's really awesome, and I hope that I obviously have personal reasons for wanting them to win, but as a fan of hockey, you should want the Panthers to win if you're not facing them, because the Panthers are just such a fun team. They really, really are. But it seems like we're aligned here with the Panthers. I have them in 5. You have them in 4. Now it is the series everybody is going to be watching. The Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Tampa Bay Lightning, the team that can never get out of the first round versus the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, number 2 and number 3 in the Atlantic Division. I think I said this before. I have the Lightning in 7. I will not bet on the Maple Leafs doing it until they show me that they can. I know that I could very well easily get dogpiled by Maple Leafs fans for saying that, but I have to be shown it first. They need to get over their mental blocks. And it's the Maple Leafs. I can't not bet against something catastrophic happening to this team. They always seem to Charlie Brown themselves at the worst possible time. I think it's going to happen again, another Game 7 loss. But that's just what, past things have told me. It's very possible this year's Maple Leafs team finally exercises the demons, and it feels like this could be the year. I'm willing to take the L on this prediction because I can't force myself to be like, this is the Maple Leafs year, and, add another, be another person when they eventually Charlie Brown it, essentially. So what say you, Andrew? I feel like this is where we're going to differ because I feel like you're going to just see the Maple Leafs as the more complete team here. But what say you?
Mary, are you on TikTok?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen that meme going around with like the big fat bumblebee and
Yes.
it's like the Dr. Evil thing?
Mm-hmm.
The best part of this plan is no one can stop me.
No one can stop
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I posted one yesterday that was like every year me gaslighting Leafs fans into believing that this is the year that they're finally going to win the playoffs. And yeah, this is me doing that again. I think the Leafs are going to win.
All right.
I really do. I think they're going to avoid Game 7 as well. I think they're going to win in 6. And my reasoning isn't that like this year the Leafs are different. My reasoning is, how can the Tampa Bay Lightning not be exhausted? Three of the 4 teams that made the Stanley Cup or the conference finals last year missed the playoffs entirely. All of them suffered major injuries all season long. You know, New York obviously had a nightmare season. Montreal, nightmare season. Vegas, nightmare season. The Tampa Bay Lightning not only had a short offseason last year, shorter than anybody but Montreal, they also had a short one the year before when they went all through it. You know, in the pandemic, they've got to be just mentally exhausted, you know, physically beaten down. At some point, they can't have the magic anymore. And I think that against a team as good as Toronto, that magic is going to run out, which sucks for Corey Perry because he just went there after losing to them twice in the final. But I don't think they can pull it off this year. Now, with that said, I didn't think that they would pull it off last year either because their regular season was just not that great. And then they just flipped a switch in the postseason and became amazing again.
Back eventually. Like, he came back to the playoffs, but he wasn't himself. We've been through that discussion before. But yes, they eventually got Kucherov back to a level where
he was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think Kucherov and Braden Point kind of had off seasons this year. Like, not just in terms of production. I think they were like relatively fine in terms of production, but defensively, they were 2 of the worst players in the league, actually, which is very, very strange for Braden Point specifically. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if that exhaustion is already set in and we just haven't quite realized it because they're still such a good team. I don't think they're not out of their Stanley Cup winning window yet, but I think they need a real off season to reset and come back for next year when they could definitely win it again. But this year, I think that the Leafs are just a little bit too strong and a little bit too fresh for the Lightning. That over a six game series, as long as Jack Campbell can hold it together, the Leafs are going to take this.
Yeah, in my head, it's hard to say because I don't want both sides this, but like, the Maple Leafs are really good. This is an undefeatable, whatever the word is. This is like, you can't deny the Maple Leafs are really good. Austin Matthews hitting 60 goals. Incredible feat. Overall, this team feels like it's the best composition we've seen from this team in terms of offensive scoring, goaltending, defensive structure. It feels like this Maple Leafs team is the most complete we've seen it in a very, very long time. But it's the Maple Leafs. They have some sort of curse. I don't know what it is. Until they can show me they can break that curse, I just can't believe in them until they do it. Because, like, I'm not even a fan of the Maple Leafs. I can't bet against whatever higher forces of fate are driving this team to doing the things that happen to them. I can't bet against that. But you make incredibly good points. And like I said, I'm willing to take the L on this prediction. I feel the models all seem to favor Toronto here, and
they always do.
They always.
The model
do.
makers happen to be Leafs fans. Let's not forget that either. No offense, Dom, but
still, like, it makes sense from the eye test, from the numbers, from just the general, like, everything going in terms of, like, like you said, the Toronto being not Toronto, Tampa Bay having played so many games, more games than any other team in the NHL over the past, 2-3 seasons or whatever. That will take a toll. I can't bet against the Maple Leafs weird voodoo nonsense that happens to them because it always happens to them. I'm convinced. I hope, in my heart of hearts, I hope it doesn't happen. I hope Toronto, finally gets through their, mental block, finally exercises those demons, and everything, they win the playoff rounds, Steve Dangle goes crazy on his podcast. It's great. I hope that's what happens because it'd be a great story, but I need to see it before I can believe it. I'm one of those people. It's like, it's the Maple Leafs. I can't I don't know. Their weird voodoo thing they've got going on is just, I don't know. I can't mess with the forces of fate, Andrew. But that is my prediction is Tampa Bay in 7. You have Toronto in 6.
Yes.
Okay. If that's the first time we've disagreed, but I felt like that was going to be our the big disagreement we have here, because like I said, this is a weird, wild series. Definitely on my top series to watch this first round because of just everything going into it. The back-to-back Stanley Cup champs versus a team that can't get out of their own way. It's going to be an incredible series. I'm really looking forward to it. But we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about the Carolina Hurricanes versus the Boston Bruins. Carolina is first in the Metro, and Boston was the first wild card. I have Carolina in 6, even without Frederik Andersen for at least game 1. There were some weird back and forth about his diagnosis, and it caused me to have to rewrite all my stuff about them in my previews multiple times because no one had an answer whether Frederik Andersen was going to be okay. He's not starting game 1, but that means Antti Raanta is in. But he's still, I think, a fine enough goaltender behind the Hurricanes' defensive structure. Like I said, I have them in 6. I think this is still going to be a tough series either way. And I would assume Anderson comes back during this series, though, sometime. Because it seemed as if there was an optimistic diagnosis about him. But it's all been kind of clouded in mystery. But he's not starting game 1 at the very least. But what say you, Andrew?
These two teams over the last 2 months have been first and second in terms of expected goals for percentage, according to Natural Stat Trick. So this, to me, now that Freddie Andersen is doubtful and may not be healthy when he comes back, is a coin flip. I think that on balance, Carolina is a slightly better team, but the Bruins have, number 1, beat them in the playoffs before, and number 2, way more playoff experience. Just their veterans are playoff gamers, and Carolina's haven't really proven that yet. And they had an advantage in Freddie Andersen, but at the same time, Freddie Andersen has not been great against the Bruins in the playoffs in his career. I don't know if you know this, Mary.
Oh, right.
But
he used to be on the Toronto Maple Leafs, yeah.
Yes, there's some history there that isn't so great for him. So it's interesting to see how this one will play out, but I don't even know if I can pick a winner because I see them as essentially equals, especially with Andersen out. Raanta has potential, but he's just been so besieged by injuries over the last several years of his career that I find it hard to be super confident in him.
They both went down at the same time, or like within days of one another. It a lot of teams, and we're going to talk about the last series, who was also dealing with goaltender issues of their own. A handful of teams from the Predators, the Hurricanes, and the Penguins, who we'll talk about, were besieged with goaltender injuries in the last week and a half of the season. That is like nightmare scenarios for those teams. And of all those teams that have goaltending injury issues, I trust the Hurricanes the most because their defensive structure can prop up a goaltender. Their defensive structure at least is still intact, even if Raanta is playing on even if he's not the best goaltender, not because Freddie Andersen put up Vezina nominated numbers this year, probably because he's playing behind the Hurricanes defense, but still it's a testament to what this defense can do, and I trust the Hurricanes more to get more out of Raanta and their defense than I do with the Predators and the Penguins, who we'll talk about. But you're right. I feel like I can see this going either way, but I'm going to force you to make a decision, Andrew, because the content.
Okay, Bruins, because life is misery.
You know what? I respect the life is misery take. I absolutely do. All right, so we actually differ on this one too. I'm kind of, not that I'm surprised, but finally, after us agreeing on a lot of stuff, it's good to have some differing takes for the content. Final series of the first round: the New York Rangers versus the Pittsburgh Penguins, number 2 and number 3 in the Metropolitan Division. I have the Rangers in 6. Because of the aforementioned goaltender issues that are plaguing the Pittsburgh Penguins, with Tristan Jarry being out, that means Casey DeSmith is going to have to slot in. And while he has not had a bad season this year, they're going up against Igor Shesterkin, and they're immediately losing the goaltender battle. And just the Penguins have looked out of sorts for the past couple of weeks. They're going to have to dig deep into their, Mark Dunk, next man up mentality. I just don't think it's going to happen against this Rangers team. I really don't. They're losing the goaltender battle as it is. We've seen that, Shesterkin can just absolutely wall a team unless for some reason he gets the yips or something and just doesn't have it in the playoffs. But I don't see how he couldn't because he just seems so composed, especially after an entire season. This is the Rangers series, in my opinion. I think it'd be more even if Tristan Jarry was back. I think he'd give them more of a fighting chance. I have the Rangers in 6, though, just because it's hard to count out Sidney Crosby and, Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang. And, like I said, they have the Mark Dunk effect where somebody is just going to, play big for a game or two and maybe help them, outscore, like just steal a game or two. But I can't see the Penguins taking this series. I really can't. That goaltending injury to Tristan Jarry was just catastrophic for this team. And, the team just hasn't been looking as good as they had been. Because, for a little while during the season, it felt like the Penguins were back in their groove, really like one of the better teams in the Metro. And even though they're in the 3rd spot in the Metro, I don't know. That's either they ran out of gas or something because they just haven't looked right in the last couple weeks of the season. But what do you think, Andrew?
I'm going to disagree with you again. I think that, with Tristan Jarry out for the first 2 games, that's what he's confirmed to be out for. The pressure is off of the Pittsburgh Penguins. They are no longer expected to win. However, this is a time where, Evgeny Malkin is a UFA. I believe Chris Letang is definitely a UFA. This might be the last run for this group. I don't think they have what it takes to win a Stanley Cup, but the New York Rangers, as good as they were down the stretch, I just don't fully believe in them as a top-end team. And Shesterkin has 1 game of playoff experience. I don't know if you remember, Mary, but it was like a very controversial decision a couple years ago in the COVID Cup when they did the play-in round that they sat Henrik Lundqvist in the deciding game.
I feel like I remember this. Yeah.
And Shesterkin came in and he was I mean, he was a rookie. It was probably a bad decision by the coaching staff.
Yeah, I think that was probably a more bad decision than on him in general.
Yeah, but he doesn't have a lot of playoff experience. So I don't know if they're not on equal footing because Shesterkin's better than DeSmith or Jarry. But the fact that they're going to lose the goaltending battle anyway, I think we'll see the Penguins play a very tight brand of hockey that maybe cuts the ability of the Rangers to generate offense. And also the Rangers, they just punched way above their weight all season long. Like nobody expects Chris Kreider to ever score 50 goals again. Mm-hmm. Like a 25 goal scorer doesn't consistently become a 50 goal scorer in their 30s. It doesn't happen.
It's been another great story though this year. I must say there's been a lot of really awesome, like not redemption stories, but like, Matt Duchene, Joe Pavelski, now, Chris Kreider scoring. Like, it's just been really it's just been a neat story, but I mean, you're right. I get that it's not sustainable, but I think just at least for the first round, I don't know, just the way the Penguins looked these last couple of weeks, Andrew, they just didn't I get it. The playoffs are a different beast. Sidney Crosby and all of them are probably going to be super pumped, because it is the playoffs, who knows how long these guys have left with each other, left in their careers. But I don't know. I can't see it. I don't know. It's very possible I'm proven wrong here. And I don't even think the Rangers are, one of the top teams in the East. I just think that, when matching up against a Penguins team that has looked as disjointed as it has, I can't see it. But the Penguins thrive in the underdog mentality that feels like they always have. That's part of their, next man up thing, the Mark Dunk situations. It's all a part of the same, mentality. So I can see a world where it happens. I don't know. It is just hard for me to look at these two teams as they stand today on Monday. But I get your reasoning, though. I don't think the Rangers are a top team, but I think that, matched up against the Penguins, it's just they have at least a leg over on them, and especially in the goaltending department, even if Shesterkin doesn't have the playoff experience. When's the best time to get playoff experience, Andrew? It's in the playoffs. You got to get playoff experience sometime. And if you're going to do it, why not now? But anything else you want to say on this series before we wrap the Eastern Conference talk up?
I think it's just important to look at the context of where Pittsburgh is in their like team state essentially, and the last few years where frankly they've been embarrassed in the playoffs. It has not gone well, but they've been matching up against really tight defensive teams who kind of choke them out. New York is not that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for the Pittsburgh Penguins to create offense here. And as great as Shesterkin was in the regular season, that slate's wiped clean. He doesn't carry a .935 save percentage into the playoffs. He's at 0 right now. So that clean slate benefits the Penguins greatly. And I think that a guy who is as young as Shesterkin is, who has as little experience in the playoffs as he has, who's used to getting rests all the time, only played like 52 games this year, I think you can rattle him still. I think that the Penguins, I've seen great goaltenders in their first few playoff series falter. And I would not be surprised at all if he had that. I mean, look at Andrei Vasilevsky. As recently as 2 years ago, he was the biggest reason why the Tampa Bay Lightning were swept.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So now he's unbeatable. But Shesterkin can be made vulnerable, and I think the Penguins are very committed to making something out of this season because, I mean, the fire that they've walked through all season just to get to this point says that this is a determined group.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. All right. So coming up next, this is going to be a long show. We're already at the 45-minute mark, and we're still got another segment to go. But
we'll go quick.
Yeah, we'll go quick. This isn't nearly as comprehensive. It's just we're going to talk about dark horse playoff picks and some bold predictions if we have any, just round out the Stanley Cup playoff talk. But I think it's good to go long here because that's all what we want. We want to talk about hockey. We want to hear our predictions and stuff like that. But the rest of our playoff talk will be coming up right after this. Summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. Throw them in your bags, in your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so that you are fueled for summer adventures. The best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bar, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. All Built Bars and Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means with Built Bar, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. Have you tried the Built Puffs yet? We're going crazy for the Puffs. They come in crazy flavors like banana cream pie and even churro. Who doesn't want a protein bar that tastes like a churro? And they're only 140 calories. Sign me up. If that's not enough flavor for you, you might want to try the Mixed Box. The Mixed Box comes with 12 flavors of bars and puffs. Built Bar makes sure that there's something for everyone. You know what my favorite flavor is? It's double chocolate, because you can never have enough chocolate in your life, if I'm being completely honest. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Go to Built.com to get all of your favorites: banana cream pie, raspberry, double chocolate, and so many more. They're all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. Check them out at Built.com. So go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off of your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, Andrew. So we're going to try and make this a little quick because, like I said, we've gone long on this episode, but I think it's been worth it because, we want to talk about the playoffs and, we moved our schedule so this episode can go out on Monday instead of Tuesday so we can get this up for you guys so you can listen to our predictions and stuff and tell us how we're wrong because that's how it always is when I predict things. Sorry to all of the teams I have predicted to win because that's how it is.
New York Islanders Stanley Cup winners.
Yeah, I think, okay, I looked back at my predictions that I wrote on For the Win, which, like I said, they were the same. I tried to, make sure all of my predictions are the same. I don't want to be like, I'm predicting this here, I'm predicting this here. No, I will stick with the same predictions, and I will live and die by the predictions. And I think I also had the Islanders going to the Stanley Cup final, though I think my pick was the Avalanche on the other end, which is still a possibility,
yes,
at least. So, for this segment, dark horse playoff picks. I'm going to stick with my my in-season regular dark horse pick and the LA Kings. For me, we talked about it. I don't think the Kings can get it done, but Andrew, you have put the thought in my mind that Phil Deneau, incredible player. if, they can shut down the Oilers, they can at least get to the second round. For me, it's hard to find a dark horse to pick here, but I wanted to stick with the Kings because I had been on their bandwagon all season. I thought, they've got a good mix of young players and veterans playing well. The kids can get playoff experience and the veterans can guide them through the playoffs. And, to me, you made a really good point about, Phil Deneau being an incredible shutdown player that, can steal the souls of other players. And it's very possible that happens here, especially, like I said, also because, Mike Smith is a huge wild card in this situation in terms of like where he goes, the Oilers will go. So that is my dark horse pick to at least make it out of the first round. They would have to match up probably against Calgary in the second round, which would be very, very difficult for them to do. But I'm kind of now a believer in Phil Deneau. You've turned me to the side, to the
dark side.
To the dark side. But like I said, I've been a big fan of the Kings over the season. I think before the season, I predicted them to be a bubble playoff team to even make the playoffs in a wild card spot. And hey, look at that. I think that was one of the predictions I was right about. So I'm going to stick with the Kings here as a dark horse pick because all hail Phil Deneau, basically.
All right, for a dark horse pick for me, I think it's pretty obvious based on what I was talking about. The Penguins. I don't think the Metro is that strong outside of the Hurricanes. I think they're relatively even teams. So I think there's a very good chance that they could sneak through the Rangers and find a way to upset either the Bruins or Hurricanes and make it all the way to the conference final.
Yeah, I mean, you have high faith in at least in the Penguins, but Penguins Twitter and our good friend Hunter, who has been on this show before, has not seemed very high on the Penguins recently. So maybe that's just you're so insular with your fandom and stuff like that. It's hard to see the forest through the trees, as it were. But I think that's at least a refreshing take, and it would be a good way for this era of the Penguins to end. With at least another playoff round or two win under their belt. Like neither of these dark horse picks are probably going to make any major noise in terms of like getting to the Stanley Cup final, but they're at least differing picks, especially in a playoff field where it's pretty chaotic overall. Because even because in the West our picks aligned, the East I was actually surprised about. That we had such differing picks, and I don't know if you did it just for the content or if you believe it, but I'm glad we had some disagreements here, and also bold predictions. I don't know if you have one, Andrew, but mine is in a similar vein to what I was just talking about. I think upsets are kind of going to be hard to come by in the first round. It seems like a lot of the underdogs took real injury hits, like I said with Nashville. They were always going to be an underdog to Colorado, but because of their goaltending injury, it just really takes them out of the playing field. Pittsburgh, like I said, I have less confidence than you do, but I don't know how the models match up on this, but it feels like the Rangers are more heavily favored in this series.
Definitely.
Yeah. So at least in terms of like the public perception, Penguins took a big hit in terms of like their goaltending injuries. And even Carolina, like even without Frederik Andersen, even though Antti Ranta is a fine enough goaltender when he's healthy, and the Hurricanes defense, things are at least a little closer, and stuff like that. But I don't know, just like it feels like for the underdogs at the very least, like it's going to be harder to come by an upset, because I don't know, just there's a lot of really strong teams, and just for me, it feels like we're not going to get a lot of upsets in the first round. But that's just like my brain predicting it. My heart though wants a whole bunch of upsets, but that's at least my bold prediction. We're probably going to see a whole bunch of like the teams in the West will probably be the ones that win unless something catastrophic happens. But I kind of want to root for chaos because chaos is fun, and at the end of the day, that's all we really want out of our hockey. Especially because we don't have like any real rooting interest in these outside of some small personal things. But it's not like the Flyers are in the playoffs, and they probably won't be sniffing the playoffs for a while. So I can root for chaos and it'd be fine. But I don't think we're going to see a lot of upsets in this first round. But what about you, Andrew? Do you have any bold predictions?
I have a very bold prediction, and
right.
I don't 100% believe in it, but I can see it happening. It's going to be an all-Canadian Stanley Cup final.
Ooh, I think I know the teams.
I mean, it's not going to be Edmonton.
Yeah, it's
Calgary,
Calgary,
Toronto.
Calgary, Toronto. Ooh, that is. I'd love that for Canada because you can't lose. You can't lose. You finally would get the cup back.
Plus,
not like
we
it
just
really
launched
matters.
shows for both of those networks, so
Yeah, that
would be fantastic for us over at SDPN. But I think that something's going to happen in these playoffs that's going to make the Leafs get over the hump, and it's going to be in that first game. Mitch Marner's going to score a goal.
Ooh.
He hasn't scored a goal in the playoffs since Game 1 against Boston in 2019.
What
he
if
has been brutal.
The first goal of the game, just in general.
Exactly. Like, what if he gets off the schneid right away? I feel like that ripple effect throughout the entire lineup of, oh, things are different now, will change the way the Leafs approach the playoffs, and they won't have that like immediate arms slump as soon as things don't go their way. So I think this could be the year if Mitch Marner gets off to a good start.
And what a story it would be, because we were talking, I mean, we've had this podcast for over a year now. We were talking about the Maple Leafs collapse last year. And like, you know, Mitch Marner was incredibly maligned after that series. Hasn't scored a playoff goal
for good reason.
Yeah. I mean, for good reason. But like, what a story it would be if that was the way things turned around. And like I said, I hope it happens. I hope for Toronto that it happens. I think even though the content will be really good if they lose, I think the content would also be really good if they win, because it's just a good story. I mean, of course, everybody loves dunking on the Maple Leafs, and you know, it's just, I don't know, it makes for good Twitter content. But
well, you're missing where the content would be best, which is when Calgary wins in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final.
Hey, there you go. I can't hate that. I can't hate that narrative, because I don't know, just Calgary is such a good team too. There's a lot of really fun teams in these playoffs. Like I've said before, like, you know, teams like the Lightning, you know, feel like they're on their last legs, at least of this run. Their Stanley Cup window isn't over, like you said, but they need a rest really badly. But, you know, even teams like the Avalanche, who have been, you know, powerhouses in the regular season, haven't made it past the second round of the playoffs.
It's true.
So there's a lot of really good, like, I don't want to say new blood here, because a lot of the teams are, you know, teams you'd expect, like, you know, Boston's, your Carolinas, Tampa Bay's, Colorado's, Minnesota too, like, but there's still a lot of really awesome and fun teams here, you know, with the Flames, the Panthers. It's just like, I don't know, there's a lot of really fun teams. I mean, Toronto, like, they haven't made it out of the first round in nearly 20 years. So there's just a lot of really awesome potential in these playoffs to be just really, really fun overall. And, you know, I don't know, just something feels different this year, whether it's just like the fact that this is finally the first regular playoff we've had after an 82 game season. Things are starting to get back to normal and stuff like that. Even though the schedule has shifted a little bit, it's the beginning of May and the playoffs are now just starting, but it feels good. It feels really good, and I'm really excited. Even if my predictions don't pan out, it's still going to be an awesome playoff, and I'm very happy that, you know, it's finally playoff time, because this is the content we all want, and I think we all need to just savor these couple of weeks, or at least, you know, the first week or so, because we get 4 games a night. Like, that's awesome. It's really awesome. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be so much fun. I'm so excited for my sleep schedule to still be, you know, wacky, because even after I log out of work at 11 p.m. at night, I'm going to be sitting down to, you know, continue watching the playoffs till however long they end. And, you know, hopefully we get some really awesome overtime games, maybe even 5 overtimes, whatever it was with the Lightning that one year. Just, I think it's going to be really awesome. But that'll at least do it for our hockey talk. We're probably going to do a little short pop culture segment, just, you know, round out the episode, even though it's going to be a bit long. But like I said, I think this is worth it, because this is the content we all want to talk about. It's the playoffs, but we're going to end it on a fun note with our pop culture segment coming up right after this. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. RockAuto.com is a family business, serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks, delivered directly to your door. The rockauto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle, and choose the brands, specifications, and prices you prefer. Best of all, prices at rockauto.com are always reliably low, and the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. Why spend up to twice as much for the same parts? Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, Andrew, we're going to close this show out with the pop culture segment. I don't have anything new to bring because I've been so focused on hockey stuff that I've just, devolved back into my usual routine of video games and stuff. But I actually have been reading the first book of the Stormlight Archive from Brandon Sanderson. I had been reading his Mistborn series, and I'm all caught up on that. So now I'm reading his other series, the Stormlight Archive, and I'm about halfway through the first book of it, and I'm really enjoying it. Love a good fantasy, book series. I've always been a big fantasy fan. Growing up reading long fantasy series is just I don't know, big comfort of mine. So at least that's been something I've been doing recently that's different than video games and stuff. And it's also nice to just read a book every once in a while, not be inundated with, social
Lights.
media. though I am reading on a Kindle, but still, it's mostly because I couldn't I usually rent books from the library because my sister works at our local library. So, I try and, support the local library and, stuff like that. But my sister couldn't get the first book in time for when we were going away to California. So I actually bought it on my Kindle. So I have it digitally, basically, because I wanted to read something while I was away, and I read a little bit of it, but I've been getting more and more into it as I've been, as the world is growing bigger and I'm understanding more about it, and it's really good. But like I said, it's nice to sit down with a book at the end of the workday and just decompress and read for a couple of chapters and then go to bed. So
yeah,
but that schedule will be upended because now my nighttime routine, instead of leaving work and reading a book, will be leaving work and watching hockey, because that is how it is. But that's at least something different I've been doing recently because, like I said, love a good fantasy book. Huge fan of just long fantasy novels. So I'm looking forward to digging more into this series because it is intriguing me so far. But what else are you doing, Andrew? Anything fun? Anything you want to mention to us before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I also decided that I was going to start reading a little bit more as the season started to go away and I have less work to do. So less screens, more reading, or sometimes reading on screens. But, I can rent books on from my local library on an app.
Yeah,
which is
I
kind of
can
cool.
do that too, yeah.
So I actually read a friend of mine's book, Wabgishig Rice. He's a Canadian author and journalist up here. Big Leafs fan. You can follow him on Twitter at WAUB. I was like WNU in the same couple span. Yes, WAUB. Great book about. It's called The Moon of the Crusted Snow, about a community, a reservation community up in Canada, and the power goes out, the phones go out, the internet goes out, all in the course of one day. And it's them navigating it, trying to figure out why, and over the course of it's going into winter. Right? So it's really interesting, really good book, very tense, short, and really good read. And also I watched a mini series that I didn't know existed until last week on a book that I read when I was in high school called I Know This Much Is True. And it stars Mark Ruffalo playing two twin brothers. And he is fantastic in it, first of all. But I have to give a shout out to, they also have him as his younger self, and the actor that plays his younger self does the best Mark Ruffalo impression I've ever seen anyone do. It's incredible. He does such a good job.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really it was jarring to see how good he was at it, from the posture to the way he enunciates. It was perfect. But yeah, really good series. Devastatingly sad though at points. So it's one of those books. It was by Wally Lamb, and I remembered reading it, and I remembered the general gist of it, and then things happened. I was like, oh right, that's why I remember being really upset that part in the book. So it was good, but also if you're not in the space to enjoy something depressing, don't watch it.
Yeah, that's completely fair. A lot of engaging media has to you have to be in the right mindset, or you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to take things away from it that are either intended or whatever. Like, it just, you need to be in a good mindset to watch something or read something, especially if it's of the sad, depressing variety. But it's good that we're both, doing things like reading and stuff like that, because I think, not everybody enjoys reading, but I think, trying to consume different types of media like that is important. And it is, like I said, nice to just sit down and just turn on some like ambient music or whatever and just read a book. It's really nice. It really is. It's a nice, good reset. And sometimes, like, some nights, it's just all I want to do is just continue reading, like, the Mistborn books. There were times when, like, I'd start the book, it was good at the start, but then, like, I would get, like, to the halfway point. It's like, I need to finish this book, and I would finish it within, like, 2 days because that's all I wanted to do. So there's nothing like finding a good book and just absorbing yourself in it, because there's, I think, one of the best feelings, at least in my opinion, in terms of, consuming media. But that's all we're going to talk about in terms of pop culture. We've got so much hockey in store, and I'm really, really excited. And we're going to talk to you later in the week about how some of the series are going. But that is all we have for you today on the Crosscheck NHL show. As part of the Locked On Podcast Network, make sure to follow us on your podcast platform of choice, from Apple to Odyssey to Spotify and YouTube, and rate and review us while you're at it. You can follow the pod at Crosscheck NHL on Twitter, me at Mary C. Clarke on Twitter, and Andrew at Andrew Berkshire on Twitter. Thanks for making the Crosscheck NHL show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. We'll be back on Friday with some more puck talk. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL. From first round matchups to each Stanley Cup kiss, Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no other. Hear the latest news and opinions from local experts every Monday through Friday. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts.